Sholem Aleichem. Solomon Naumovich Rabinovich, better known under his pen name Sholem Aleichem Yiddish and Hebrew ๊ʃɔləm, also spelled Shalom ๊әlɛjxəm in Soviet Yiddish, ๊ʃɔləm Russian and Ukrainian, Sholem Aleichem March 20 February 18, 1859 May 13, 1916, was a Yiddish author. The 1964 musical Fiddler on the Roof, based on his stories about Tevye the Dairyman, was the first commercially successful English-language stage production about Jewish life in Eastern Europe. The Hebrew phrase ๊ɛlɛjxəm shalom aleichem literally means "May peace be upon you," and is a greeting in traditional Hebrew and Yiddish. Biography. Solomon Naumovich Rabinovich Russian. Solomon Naumovich Rabinovich was born in 1859 in Pereyaslav and grew up in the nearby Sh small town with a large Jewish population of Voronkiv in the Poltava Governorate of the Russian Empire, now in the Kiev Oblast of central Ukraine. Voronkiv has become the prototype of Alaichem's Kasralka. His father, Menachem Rabinovich, was a rich merchant at that time. However, a failed business affair plunged the family into poverty, and Solomon Rabinovich grew up in reduced circumstances. When he was 13 years old, the family moved back to Pereyaslav, where his mother, Esther, died in a cholera epidemic. Sholem Aleichem's first venture into writing was an alphabetic glossary of the epithets used by his stepmother. At the age of 15, inspired by Robinson Crusoe, he composed a Jewish version of the novel. He adopted the pseudonym Sholem Aleichem, a Yiddish variant of the Hebrew expression Shalom Aleichem, meaning peace be with you and typically used as a greeting. In 1876, after graduating from school in Pereyaslav, he spent 3 years tutoring a wealthy landowner's daughter, Olga Hodel-Love, 1865–1942. From 1880 to 1883, he served as Crown Rabbi in Lubny. On May 12, 1883, he and Olga married, against the wishes of her father. A few years later, they inherited the estate of Olga's father. In 1890, Sholem Aleichem lost their entire fortune in a stock speculation and fled from his creditors. Solomon and Olga had their first child, a daughter named Ernestina Tissa, in 1884. Daughter Lilia Lily was born in 1887. As Lilia Kaufman, she became a Hebrew writer. Lilia's daughter Belle Kaufman, also a writer, was the author of Up the Down Staircase, which was also made into a successful film. A third daughter, Emma, was born in 1888. In 1889, Olga gave birth to a son. They named him Elimelech, after Olga's father, but at home they called him Misha. Daughter Marusi, who would one day publish My Father, Sholem Aleichem, under her married name Marie Waif Goldberg, was born in 1892. A final child, a son named Nachum Numa after Solomon's father, was born in 1901 under the name Norman Reben. He became a painter and an influential art teacher. After witnessing the pogroms that swept through southern Russia in 1905, including Kiev, Sholem Aleichem left Kiev and immigrated to New York City, where he arrived in 1906. His family set up house in Geneva, Switzerland, but when he saw he could not afford to maintain 2 households, he joined them in Geneva in 1908. Despite his great popularity, he was forced to take up an exhausting schedule of lecturing to make ends meet. In July 1908, during a reading tour in Russia, Sholem Aleichem collapsed on a train going through Baranowicz. He was diagnosed with a relapse of acute hemorrhagic tuberculosis and spent 2 months convalescing in the town's hospital. He later described the incident as meeting His Majesty, the Angel of Death, face to face, and claimed it as the catalyst for writing his autobiography, Funim Yared from the Fair. He thus missed the first conference for the Yiddish language, held in 1908 in Chernivtsi. His colleague and fellow Yiddish activist Nathan Birnbaum went in his place. Sholem Aleichem spent the next 4 years living as a semi-invalid. During this period, the family was largely supported by donations from friends and admirers. Among his friends and acquaintances were fellow Yiddish authors I.L. Peretz, Jacob Deinzahn, Mordecai Spector, and Noach Priloki. In 1909, in celebration of his 25th jubilee as a writer, his friend and colleague Jacob Deinzahn spearheaded a committee with Dr. Gershon Levine, Abraham Podlaszewski, and Noach Priloki to buy back the publishing rights to Sholem Aleichem's works from various publishers for his sole use in order to provide him with a steady income. At a time when Sholem Aleichem was ill and struggling financially, this proved to be an invaluable gift, and Sholem Aleichem expressed his gratitude in a thank you letter, in which he wrote, "If I tried to tell you 100th part of the way I feel about you, I know that that would be sheer profanation. If I am fated to live a few years longer than I have been expecting, I shall doubtless be able to say that it's your fault, yours and that of all the other friends who have done so much to carry out your idea of the redemption of the imprisoned." Sholem Aleichem moved to New York City again with his family in 1914. The family lived in the Lower East Side, Manhattan. His son Misha, ill with tuberculosis, was not permitted entry under United States immigration laws. Sholem Aleichem died in New York in 1916. He is buried in the main old section of Mount Carmel Cemetery in Queens, New York City. Literary career. Like his contemporaries Mendel Macher Esforum, I.L. Peretz, and Jacob Deinzahn, Sholem Rabinovich started writing in Hebrew as well as in Russian. In 1883, when he was 24 years old, he published his first Yiddish story Tevye the Dairyman, 2 Stones, using for the first time the pseudonym Sholem Aleichem. By 1890, he was a central figure in Yiddish literature, the vernacular language of nearly all East European Jews, and produced over 40 volumes in Yiddish. It was often derogatorily called jargon, but Sholem Aleichem used this term in an entirely non-pejorative sense. Apart from his own literary output, Sholem Aleichem used his personal fortune to encourage other Yiddish writers. In 1888-89, he put out 2 issues of an almanac, Die Yiddish Bibliothek die Yiddish Volksbibliothek, the Yiddish Popular Library, which gave important exposure to young Yiddish writers. In 1890, after he lost his entire fortune, he could not afford to print the almanac's 3rd issue, which had been edited but was subsequently never printed. Tevye the Dairyman, in Yiddish T by Dr. Milchig, Tevye der Milchiger, was first published in 1894. Over the next few years, while continuing to write in Yiddish, he also wrote in Russian for an Odessa newspaper and for Voskad, the leading Russian Jewish publication of the time, as well as in Hebrew for Hamelitz and for an anthology edited by Y.H. Ravnitsky. It was during this period that Sholem Aleichem contracted tuberculosis. In August 1904, Sholem Aleichem edited Hilp, ZM LBVK Polit RTVR VNQVNST Hilf, a Sammelbuch für Literatur und Kunsthelp, an anthology for literature and art, Warsaw, 1904, and himself translated 3 stories submitted by Tolstoy S.R. Haddon, King of Assyria, work, Death and Sickness. Critical reception. Sholem Aleichem's narratives were notable for the naturalness of his characters' speech and the accuracy of his descriptions of sshtl life. Early critics focused on the cheerfulness of the characters, interpreted as a way of coping with adversity. Later critics saw a tragic side in his writing. He was often referred to as the Jewish Mark Twain because of the 2 authors' similar writing styles and use of pen names. Both authors wrote for adults and children and lectured extensively in Europe and the United States. When Twain heard of the writer called the Jewish Mark Twain, he replied, "Please tell him that I am the American Sholem Aleichem." Beliefs and activism. Sholem Aleichem was an impassioned advocate of Yiddish as a national Jewish language, which he felt should be accorded the same status and respect as other modern European languages. He did not stop with what came to be called Yiddishism, but devoted himself to the cause of Zionism as well. Many of his writings present the Zionist case. In 1888, he became a member of Hovei Zion. In 1907, he served as an American delegate to the 8th Zionist Congress held in The Hague. Sholem Aleichem had a mortal fear of the number 13. His manuscripts never had a page 13. He numbered the 13th pages of his manuscripts as Tevye. Though it has been written that even his headstone carries the date of his death as May 12, 1916, his headstone reads the dates of his birth and death in Hebrew, the 26th of Adar and the 10th of Iyar, respectively. Death. Sholem Aleichem died in New York on May 13, 1916, from tuberculosis and diabetes, aged 57, while working on his last novel, >ʻMā'lē, Pacey the Cantor's son, and was buried at Old Mount Carmel Cemetery in Queens. At the time, his funeral was one of the largest in New York City history, with an estimated 100,000 mourners. The next day, his will was printed in the New York Times and was read into the Congressional Record of the United States. Commemoration and Legacy. Sholem Aleichem's will contain detailed instructions to family and friends with regard to burial arrangements and marking his yahrzeit. He told his friends and family to gather, read my will, and also select one of my stories, one of the very merry ones, and recite it in whatever language is most intelligible to you. Let my name be recalled with laughter, he added, or not at all. The celebrations continue to the present day, and, in recent years, have been held at the Brotherhood Synagogue on Gramercy Park South in New York City, where they are open to the public. He composed the text to be engraved on his tombstone in Yiddish. In 1997, a monument dedicated to Sholem Aleichem was erected in Kiev. Another was erected in 2001 in Moscow. The main street of Biography is named after Sholem Aleichem. Streets were named after him also in other cities in the Soviet Union, most notably among them in Ukrainian cities such as Kiev, Odessa, Vinnytsia, Lviv, and Zhytomyr. In New York City, in 1996, East 33rd Street between Park and Madison Avenue is additionally named Sholem Aleichem Place. Many streets in Israel are named after him. Postage stamps of Sholem Aleichem were issued by Israel Scott #154 1959, the Soviet Union Scott #2164 1959, Romania Scott #1268 1959, and Ukraine Scott #758 2009. An impact crater on the planet Mercury also bears his name. On March 2, 2009, 150 years after his birth, the National Bank of Ukraine issued an anniversary coin celebrating Aleichem with his face depicted on it. Vilnius, Lithuania has a Jewish school named after him, and in Melbourne, Australia, a Yiddish school, Sholem Aleichem College, is named after him. Several Jewish schools in Argentina were also named after him. In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, a library named Biblioteca Sholem Aleichem was founded in 1915, as a Zionist institution by a local Jewish group. Next year, in 1916, same group that created Bibsa founded a Jewish school named ɛskolā Sholem Aleichem that was closed in 1997. Bibsa had a very active theatrical program in Yiddish for more than 50 years since its foundation, and consistently performed Sholem Aleichem plays. In 1947, Bibsa evolved in a more complete club named Ase Associação Sholem Aleichem that exists nowadays in Botafogo neighborhood. Both the library and club became communist institutions due to a normal transition of power in the founding group. After the 20th Communist Congress in 1956, some members left the group because of its communist ties and founded their own school, Colégio Eliezer Steinberg, which still exists and is one of the best Jewish schools in Brazil. It is named after the first director of ɛskolā Sholem Aleichem, who was a Jewish writer born in Romania that immigrated to Brazil. In the Bronx, New York, a housing complex called the Sholem Aleichem Houses was built by Yiddish-speaking immigrants in the 1920s and was recently restored by new owners to its original grandeur. The Sholem Aleichem houses are part of a proposed historic district in the area. On May 13, 2016, a Sholem Aleichem website was launched to mark the 100th anniversary of Sholem Aleichem's death. The website is a partnership between Sholem Aleichem's family, his biographer Professor Jeremy Dauber, Citizen Film, Columbia University Center for Israel and Jewish Studies, the Covenant Foundation, and the Yiddish Book Center. The website features interactive maps and timelines, recommended readings, as well as a list of centennial celebration events taking place worldwide. The website also features resources for educators. Hertz Grossbard recited many of his works in so-called word concerts. A reading in Yiddish of his monologue If I Were a Rothschild, and several others can be found on the Grossbard project. Writer's brother Wolf Rabinovich published the memoir My Brother Sholem Aleichem in Kiev, Soviet Union, in 1939. Sholem Aleichem's granddaughter, Belle Kaufman, by his daughter Lala Lilia, was an American author, most widely known for her novel Up the Down Staircase, published in 1964, which was adapted to the stage and also made into a motion picture in 1967, starring Sandy Dennis. Published works, English language collections. Tevye's Daughters, collected stories of Sholem Aleichem by Sholem Aleichem, Transl Francis Butwin, Iluz Ben Shan, N.Y. Crown, 1949. The stories which formed the basis for Fiddler on the Roof. The Best of Sholem Aleichem, edited by R. Wyss, I. Howe, originally published 1979, Walker and Company, 1991, ISBN 0-8027-2645-3. Tevye the Dairyman and the Railroad Stories, translated by H. Halkin, originally published 1987, Skokin Books, 1996, ISBN 0-8052-1069-5. 19 to the Dozen Monologues and Bits and Bobs of Other Things, translated by Ted Gorlick, Syracuse Univ Press, 1998, ISBN 0-805156-477-7. A Treasury of Sholem Aleichem Children's Stories, translated by Aliza Chevron, Jason Aronson, 1996, ISBN 1-56821-926-1. Inside Kasrilovko, 3 stories, translated by I. Goldstick, Skokin Books, 1948, variously reprinted. The Old Country, translated by Julius and Francis Butwin, J.B.H. of Peconic, 1999, ISBN 1-929068-21-2. Stories and Satires, translated by Kurt Leviat, Sholem Aleichem Family Publications, 1999, ISBN 1-929068-20-4. Selected Works of Sholem Aleichem, edited by Marvin Zuckerman and Marion Herbst, Volume Roman II of the 3 great classic writers of modern Yiddish literature, Joseph Simon Pangloss Press, 1994, ISBN 0-934710-24-4. Some Laughter, Some Tears, translated by Kurt Leviat, Paperback Library, 1969, Library of Congress Catalog Card Number 68 Autobiography. Funam Yared, written 1914-1916, translated as The Great Fair by Tamara Kahana, Noonday Press, 1955, translated by Kurt Leviat as From the Fair, Viking, 1986, ISBN 0-14-8830-X. Novels. Stempanu, a Jewish novel, originally published in his Volksbibliothek, adapted 1905 for the play Jewish Daughters. Yasel Salavi, 1889, published in his Volksbibliothek. Tevye's Daughters, translated by F. Butwin, originally published 1949, Crown, 1959. ISBN 0-517-50710-2. Motel the Cantor's Son, Originally written in Yiddish. English version Henry Schumann, Inc. New York, 1953. Translated by Tamara Kahana Siksa, the author's granddaughter. In the Storm, Wandering Stars, Marion Bad, translated by Aliza Chevron, 1982. J.P. Putnam Sons, New York, from original Yiddish manuscript copyrighted by Olga Rabinovich in 1917. The Bloody Hoax, Menahem Mendel, translated as The Adventures of Menahem Mendel, translated by Tamara Kahana, Sholem Aleichem Family Publications, 1969, ISBN 1-929068-2-6. Young Adult Literature. The Bewitched Tailor, Sholem Aleichem Family Publications, 1999, ISBN 1-929068-19. Plays. The Doctor, 1887, one-act comedy. Forget the Divorce, 1888, one-act comedy. Die Asif the Assembly, 1889, one-act comedy. Basil Tov, 1889, one-act play. Yaknez, 1894, a satire on brokers and speculators. Sezaitung Seshbrite scattered far and wide, 1903, comedy. Agent and Agents, 1908, one-act comedy. Yiddish Tekter Jewish Daughters, 1905, drama, adaptation of his early novel Stempenu. Die Goldgräber, The Gold Diggers, 1907, comedy. S.H. Vertzu Zane Yid Hard to be a Jew / If I Were You, 1914, 14. Thos Gross Jevons, The Big Lottery / The Jackpot, 1916. Tevye der Milchkicker, Tevye the Milkman, 1917, performed posthumously. Stage. The World of Sholem Aleichem. Television. The World of Sholem Aleichem. Air date, December 14, 1959. Channel, WNTA TV Channel 13, New York City. Written by Arnold Pearl. Directed by Don Richardson. Produced by David Susskind and Henry T. Weinstein. Included 3 short teleplays. A Tale of Chelm, a folktale, author unknown. Bonch Schwade by I.L. Peretz. The High School Academicium by Sholem Aleichem. Starring Gertrude Berg as Hannah the High School. Maurice Karnofsky as Rabbi David, A Tale of Chelm, presiding angel Bonch S.H. Vague. Aaron Ketz the High School. Sam Levine as narrator. Zero Mostel as the Milayim, A Tale of Chelm. Nancy Walker as Rivkel, A Tale of Chelm. Charlotte Ray as Angel, A Tale of Chelm. Lee Grant as Avenging Angel Bonch S.H. Vague. Jack Guilford as Bonch S.H. Vague. Henry Lasco as Dodie the Innkeeper, A Tale of Chelm, Principal the High School. Miscellany. Jewish Children, translated by Hannah Berman, William Morrow & Co., 1987, ISBN 0-688-84120-1. Numerous stories in Russian, published in Boskad, 1891-1892.